Pokémon Red and Blue, a game so broken you can battle a jumbled mess to give you infinite rare candies, catch a level 100 Pokemon before ever facing a gym leader, and catch Mew under a truck by the SS and, well, allegedly. Now of course, there's no Mew under the truck, but this silly truck, the SS and Mew, and Pokemon Red and Blue have some of the most infamous rumors in gaming history, and today I want to focus on the truck and Mew. Now normally, the player obtains a ticket to board the SS and after helping Bill at his house north of Cerulean City. Then once defeating Misty's gym and making it to Vermilion City, you'll realize you have nowhere else to go but the SS and. So you go to the port, flash your ticket given to you by a furry, and explore the ship. On the ship you can find a great ball in the trash, battle your rival, and help this old captain with a stomach ache by rubbing his back. That's not even the weirdest part about this area of the game, but once helping the captain, he'll give you the HM for cut, allowing you to enter the Vermilion City gym and progress the game through the Rock Tunnel, Lavender Town, and then eventually beat the game. But once you leave the SS and the boat sails away, the player is unable to return there again unless you do a glitch in Red and Blue, allowing the player to basically surf on land and bypass the guard and access the full port yet again. This truck by the SS and is only visible if the player has access to surf and if they surf over to the right and land on the section of the dock where the truck is. Most players would never know about this because you don't have surf when you first enter the SSN, but someone in the late 90s found this truck and spawned this whole Mew being under the truck rumor fiasco. The rumor says if you use strength on the truck, you can move the truck and the Mew would appear, but my questions are, 1. Why is this truck even here? The Generation 1 Pokemon games and Game Boy games in general were known for having very limited space on the cartridge, meaning everything had to be optimized to fit on the game, hence why things like the Stone Evolution glitch happen, so it doesn't make sense to waste space on a sprite of a truck that just does nothing, and is barely even seen at that point. 2. Where did this rumor even begin about Mew being under the truck? And I guess to piggyback off this question, why would Mew even be under the truck? Did it get run over, or is it hiding? 3. Why are there still trucks by the SS and in future Pokemon games? And 4. You, why aren't you subscribed yet? Are you some sort of lame-o or something? First, the truck itself. In Pokemon Red and Blue, you'll notice the same sprite used repeatedly throughout the game. There's only a handful of different variations of houses used in every town that basically look the same, all of the gyms are the same, and there's a couple of variations of trees, rocks, and even trainer sprites, but gym leaders don't even have their own unique sprites. There are some exceptions though, like the rival having a unique sprite, the professor, and the Elite Four. Then these trees, which are only seen in the Viridian Forest and the Safari Zone, but the point I'm trying to make here is space was so limited in this game and so many sprites are reused, so why did they make this truck to appear once in the game, off screen, make it very difficult to access unless you go out of your way to be able to surf here, whether it be by a glitch like I mentioned earlier, or purposefully altering how you played the section of the game to be able to return back and surf before the ship sets sail, which is very tedious and very annoying to do and just doesn't make any sense. But then the truck even returned in Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen, but was in a slightly different location that was easier to access after obtaining the cut HM. If you use Strength and FireRed and LeafGreen on the truck, of course, nothing happens, although there is a lava cookie that can be found nearby, which is the only lava cookie found in FireRed and LeafGreen before entering the post-game in the Sevi Islands. Now, minor tangent here, if you look at the full area of water the truck was on in FireRed and LeafGreen, you can see it's just a strip of floating land, and my next question is, what is this truck even doing here and how did it get here in FireRed and LeafGreen? In Red and Blue, it's at least plausible the dock continues off screen and the truck can then go on to land somewhere else that isn't visible to the player, so there could be like a garage or something. But in FireRed and LeafGreen, the truck could have only gotten here if it was coming off of a ship, but then why just leave the truck here? Back on track. I can't find concrete evidence as to why the lava cookie was specifically chosen to be here and not, say, a rare candy, which could have tied into the Easter egg with the many rare candy glitches in Generation 1, other than speculation that Mew likes cookies and left one by the truck. There's also a truck in the Let's Go games floating in the water yet again, but this time there's a revive item near it instead of a lava cookie. Mew was also rather rare in FireRed and LeafGreen and was only obtainable through events that you could get in person, like the Mystery Toys R Us Mew, which I managed to get in Pokemon Emerald back in 2006, but it also worked for FireRed and LeafGreen. Then in the Let's Go games, Mew is only obtainable if you buy the Pokeball Plus controller, making it one of the very few pay-to-win Pokemon. I think it's safe to assume that the reason for the truck being in the future games was just simply an Easter egg to call back to the rumor, but the reason why it's in Red and Blue still remains a mystery. Some speculate that trucks were intended to be scattered across the Kanto region as another tool to build out the world and make it feel more lived in, and then they cut them and forgot to remove the one by the SS Anne, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because if the sprite is still in the game, why bother removing all of the other trucks and then leave this one and not just delete the sprite? And another theory is that the truck was supposed to be closer to where the player walks into the boat from and they should be able to see the truck from there, which would make sense since trucks would be needed to load up supplies onto any cruise ship. Then according to a random Pokemon community forum post from 2011, someone a while ago sent an email to Nintendo asking them about the truck in Red and Blue, and Nintendo said it was an Easter egg. Doesn't get too much more concrete than random forum posts from 2011 with no sources, but to address the theory of the truck being intended to be in multiple areas then be cut, we can take a look at the cutting room floor. On this website, we can see early versions of various places in Pokemon Red and Blue, which look much different than the final versions. There's super early versions, which look very different, and then not as early versions that look slightly different, and then of course, the final versions. These are very glitchy and early in development, but after looking through them, I couldn't find anything about Vermilion City's port. There was an early version of Vermilion City, and there's water on the southwest side, and maybe to the southeast it could have then led into a port or perhaps the next route. But then if we continue to Celadon City, the early map does look like it has a port here and no truck in sight, so perhaps early on in development, Celadon City was basically supposed to be what Vermilion City ended up being. But now here's where things get interesting. Pokemon Red and Blue seem to have a scrap town. There's a lot of speculation behind this town, and people theorizing it was supposed to be right in the center of the Kanto region, but take a look at this. You see that? It's a truck. This one's just parked in the middle of a town, and while just about everything from this early version of Red and Blue looks different from the final version of the games, from the buildings, the mart interior, the grass, and even the fences, this truck sprite is the exact same sprite that you can see by the SS Anne, and yet again, even in these early versions of the game maps, there's still just one truck. You know, originally this video was going to be me covering vehicles in Pokemon games in general, like the trains in Gold and Silver or the buses in Pokemon Sun and Moon, but then I went to record footage of every vehicle in the game and just got super fixated on this stupid truck in Red and Blue, and here we are now. I do want to mention that the truck is even referenced in Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, you know, the weird stepchild to Pokemon that's like not really a main series game but still ties into the main series games a lot, where a beauty in the quick battle mode will say there's no Pokemon under a truck. Maybe you'll just find a muck because she's writing a song or something. But to get back on track, or rather back on truck, there's even some screenshots of early versions of Kanto towns before release that are later than the towns we mentioned before, and Vermilion City is still lacking a visible port, and I can't find any versions of the early maps that have an actual port or the SS Anne sprite itself, which would imply that the SS Anne was a later addition to the game, at least the ship exterior itself was a later addition. This would explain why earlier versions of Vermilion Cities don't have a tree blocking the gym, and why the SS Anne doesn't actually take the player anywhere, although there are some early versions of the interior of some of the cabins of the SS Anne as well as one of the decks, but I couldn't find any early versions of the port or the ship itself. I also want to mention, where is the SS Anne even going? Because if you look at a map of Kanto, even as late as Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, you can see the cycling road is blocking off the water, so if the ship were to leave from Vermilion City, it would have nowhere to go. Now, seeing how these early versions of the cabins and the deck of the SS Anne look nearly identical to the final release with some minor changes like different trainers being in different locations or whatever, I think it's safe to assume that the SS Anne was made late in development, but most likely before the unused town with the truck was scrapped. So now, how did people even find this truck? Where did this rumor begin? As for addressing how people found it, I would assume it was from some sort of cheating device to return to the port after obtaining Surf or using Walk Through Walls, or maybe somebody who played these games a ton went way out of their way to trade over a Pokemon with Cut from another game to then bypass ever after going on the SS Anne so they can return later after obtaining Surf and then surf around the ship to see what's there to then stumble upon the truck. But then how did the rumor of Mew being under this truck even start? Now, back in the late 90s when Red and Blue first came out, it was common for random gaming websites or gaming magazines to print incorrect information or even downright lies or hoaxes, like how Nintendo Power even published an article for April Fools about getting Yoshi in Pokemon Red and Blue. While that was a bit more ridiculous, something like Mew being under the truck seemed more believable. I mean, Everyone knew about Mewtwo, there were hints about Mew in the game and in the anime, so where is Mew in Red and Blue? I know today it's common for mythical Pokemon to not be able to be encountered in the main game, but back in Generation 1, nobody knew that. Mew is even mentioned in the Generation 1 games as well as FireRed and LeafGreen in this diary in the Cinnabar Mansion, stating that Mew is from Guyana, a real-world country in South America. This raises more questions about Pokemon geography, another video I'm working on, but in the Let's Go games, they removed this part of the game saying Mew is from Guyana, South America, and they just said they found it in the jungle. Now, back to rumors. According to Mark J on Reddit like 4 years ago, I know, another very reliable internet source, they remember their dad printing out something about Mew being under the truck that they found online. It's unclear as to what site exactly posted that original information, but they then go on to say how they tried it, but of course didn't find Mew. Then they discovered another Mew rumor years later involving the Nugget Bridge. This is in reference to the infamous Mew glitch I'm sure most people know about, where basically you can use a move like Fly or Teleport right as a specific trainer is about to battle you, walk up through a certain area, press start or something like that, and then bam, Mew just kind of appears. I tried it before when I was a kid, didn't think it would work, and then it did. To me, this Mew glitch sounds more ridiculous than Mew just being under the truck, but this glitch actually works and was real. There's a few different variations and setups to this glitch, and this glitch wasn't even known until a couple of years after Red and Blue first came out, and likely didn't have too much overlap with the truck rumors, at least at their peak. While I was searching for a more concrete website or a magazine article from the 90s about Mew being under the truck, I found this comic from 2018 by Wooden Plank Studios depicting the truck with the caption stating, quote, "You wouldn't believe the theories surrounding the truck in middle school. I distinctly remember an official Pokemon magazine that claimed you had to bring a level 100 Golem with Fissure Earthquake Strength and a fourth move I don't remember. That Golem would be able to move the truck and reveal some footsteps. If you step in those footsteps, you'd be transported to a pond/fountain in the Silph Co lobby where you can then catch Mew." Almost as ridiculous as the press A 50 times after catching Mewtwo to catch Mew theory, which is another Mew rumor that I didn't even know until I found this. This recollection of the truck rumor is more convoluted than the typical just use strength method, but I found quite a few posts similar to this from throughout the years of people recalling seeing the truck rumor on a website or in a magazine many years ago without stating exactly what website they found it on or what magazine it was on, and with some varying steps, but all of them concluding with Mew being under the truck. And to be fair, even if they did remember what website it was on, it's unlikely that those articles will still be up, and if it was found in a printed niche gaming magazine, it's also unlikely that screenshots of those magazines would still exist online today. And it seems like nobody can really agree or pinpoint exactly where this Mew rumor came from. It was just something spread on the playground, posted on various forums in the 90s to troll players with some different variations, and possibly picked up by some smaller gaming magazines from the era who just said Mew was under the truck without verifying if it was real, because it wasn't. My crown is falling off. We've looked at many official Pokemon strategy guides on the channel in the past, and while the older ones don't have anything outrageous in them, like claims of Mew being under a truck, they did make their fair share of mistakes, so you can only imagine what it was like for publications that weren't officially licensed by Nintendo. This wasn't the only rumor back for Generation 1, and rumors like this were really a product of their time. Now, back when Red and Blue first came out, the internet was relatively new, not too many people had it, and it was far from what it was today, where rumors like this could be squashed and debunked before they had a chance to spread. But if you told a kid on the playground back in 1998 that you could find Mew under a truck in Red and Blue, the only way they can verify if that was legit or not was to try it themselves. Heck, I even remember falling for a rumor about getting Celebi in Lorelei's house on the Sevi Islands in FireRed and LeafGreen. The trick I saw online didn't make any sense, but I saw it posted on a forum and had no real other way of verifying it without trying it out myself. I was a child, okay? Don't judge me. As for Mew in Generation 1, there was a legitimate way to obtain it without any glitches, but it would require you to go to an in-person event and have the Mew traded over to you. These events were more common in Japan and were still very limited, especially outside of Japan, but if you got this Mew, they would even give you a certificate to authenticate your Mew. This was a really cool thing to do, and while I was never able to do one of these Mew events as I was a kid, as I was way too young, I was able to go to the 10th anniversary celebration in Generation 3, and I even got this official trader certificate. As far as I know, these two certificates were the only times they ever gave out something like this, and at that event, you could have also got Mew in FireRed and LeafGreen. Now for the truck itself, why is it even here? Game Freak or Nintendo never really fully acknowledged it officially, and this truck only appears here, and the only conclusion I can draw is they just forgot about it after accidentally putting it here earlier on in development, off screen from the player's normal intended view, and just for some reason never got rid of the sprite, even though having very limited storage space on the cartridge and wasting it on a sprite you'd never see. Like we discussed earlier, space on Game Boy cartridges was so limited to a point where everything needed a purpose, so much so that there are Gen 1 Pokemon that shared cries, and a few towns that shared songs like Cerulean City and Fuchsia City, so seeing a truck here with no purpose just doesn't make any sense and caused a lot of speculation, but that's all it was, a mistake or a decoration with no purpose. It's kind of a theme on this channel to severely overanalyze aspects of Pokemon, especially this year, and I'm sure somebody's going to comment being annoyed that the answer to the truck being there was just that there is no point, it just served no purpose. But what did you expect? Did you really expect Mew to be under a truck off screen on the SSN at a point of the game where like 99% of players, probably 99.9% of players would never access unless they had outside knowledge of the truck being there and went out of their way to go there and then use strength on the truck to find the Mew? Did you really expect that? If you don't believe me, fine. I'll get my copy of Pokemon Blue, I'll go to the SSN, I'll use strength on the truck, and I'll show you what happens. See, look, I'm walking up to the truck using strength and... Wait a minute. What?